Very special Anime-Zing radio here on a Friday night. I'm your host, Doug Engler. Joining us in the co-host seat, as always, is our good friend, Mr. Darren Starling.
Hello.
And we're doing a very special show tonight to promote an awesome convention that's coming up next weekend in St. Albans, Vermont. Our special guest tonight is Luke from Rail City Fan Fest. Thank you so much for joining us, Luke.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. This is exciting.
And for our viewers out there who may not know of Rail City, tell everybody a little bit about what Rail City is.
So, Rail City Fan Fest is a new show coming up next weekend in St. Albans, Vermont. It's focusing on all things pop culture and art, comics, and cosplay, and all that fun stuff that you get at any other convention. I'm hoping to make it a little more interactive, so any kids or families that come in, they'll have a little bit more to see and do and touch and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And what gave you the idea of wanting to start up Rail City?
I am a very impulsive person who likes a good project and a good challenge. My dad texted me just out of the blue one day. I was at work and he said, "Why don't you start your own convention?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right, let's see what that's all about." And then my brain just started going and going and going. I was like, "Oh, I could do this and this and this and this and this and this and this," and it just kind of blew up from there. Things started to make more sense and things started to fall into place. Before I knew it, I was like actually running a real show.
That is crazy. And I didn't mean to laugh, but I've had the same conversation with friends being like, you know so many people, you go to so many conventions. Why not put your own on? And I'm like, I want to keep the hair I have. I don't have much left.
Yeah, luckily it's pretty thick up here. I'm not losing any yet. We'll get there.
And I know we didn't get a chance to talk a lot before going live, but we do keep a very laid-back, interactive improv show. So we kind of have a lot of fun here and really excited about having you on. I'm excited about being a sponsor of Rail City. We really took a leap this year. I don't know if you know much of the history of Anime-Zing Radio, but I started the show over 8 years ago as a way to give back to the anime and pop culture community. That helped me get through some tough times. And so 2020, after the pandemic, convention started coming back. Darren, myself, and our other co-host, Angela, who's unable to join us tonight, decided that we're really going to push the show. We really want to grow it, and we're going to step out of our normal boundaries. So this is the first year that we have decided to sponsor conventions.
That's awesome.
And we sponsor PoochieCon in Pennsylvania and their New Jersey show, which is coming up in August, and we're sponsoring Rail City. So I'm excited about working with you guys, especially a first-year convention, and excited to experience what you guys have to offer as opposed to other conventions that we've gone to as vendors. My wife's an artist, so I know what it's like at an artist table and press and a lot of different hats at conventions. So I'm curious to see what Rail City has to offer. I know that Vermont is not the best market for conventions. There's not a lot there, especially when it comes to pop culture, because I'm still friends with the guy who ran the former Vermont Comic-Cons. So I know that a lot of people up there are starving for good conventions, good events. Is that something that aided you into wanting to create something for the fans of pop culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once Vermont Comic-Con ended a couple years ago, there was just this hole in the community, and it became much harder to connect with people who are into this sort of thing, just because there's nothing there for us. Because, like you said, there's not much up here in the way of like pop culture and that sort of thing. And so we have a nice venue here in town that is used for, like local craft shows, home shows, that sort of thing. And it's the perfect venue to do this sort of thing because it's right. Plenty of parking, plenty of space to grow. And I think it'll really take off because there has been that hole in the community.
And we pulled up the website here so that the viewers out there can get an idea of the website and just what they can expect from Rail City Fan Fest. And you have a lot of cool events that's going to be going on. One thing that I always look at is vendors, because I enjoy checking out artwork, and I'm huge into collectible figures, things like that for anime. And we saw a lot of really, really cool vendors who are going to be there that some we know and some we don't know. So, uh, what was it like to select the different artists and vendors who reached out to you?
The first thing I wanted to focus on was as many local people as I could because I wanted to, like I said, I want to support that community within the state that hasn't been able to do this sort of thing. So I was reaching out to as many local artists as I possibly could. And if there were, comic book vendors in town, great. I'd love to have that as well. Um, which became a big challenge because it's a new show. It's at a new spot in a new town where there hasn't been this kind of convention. So trying to say like, no, this is gonna be something. You gotta jump on board. It's gonna be something. It was tough, but plugging away at it over the course of a year, I've gotten as many as I have, and I'm thrilled with the amount of people who have supported it so far.
And how long have you been planning Rail City? I'm sure this wasn't an overnight thing.
I can find the exact day that I started planning this. I have it in my notebook right here when I just started like rapidly scribbling out notes and ideas for what I could do. It was April 28th of 2021 was when I started thinking about it. And as like I have this whole page of notes of potential people from around town that could be a part of it. And luckily, a lot of them ended up jumping on board or helping out in some way, which has been fantastic. It's been such a cool way to connect with people in the community that I haven't connected with before or that I haven't connected with in years because of the pandemic.
And are you yourself, have you been going to conventions for a while?
Oh yeah, I love going to conventions. I love cosplaying. I think that is probably the one thing that I really, really look forward to during the year. Um, I spent all of quarantine building a bat suit from the Arkham games and brought that down to Fan Expo Boston. Just had a blast. And the fact that I have a lot of cosplay friends that I've met going from Montreal to Boston to New York, whatever, and they're coming up and being a part of it, which is so special to me. It's really cool to see not only like vendors that I don't know, but a lot of my friends coming up, which is great.
And it's got to feel good to have that support from the community as well, being like, we're happy to see, a pop culture based and, event. And what are some of the plans that you have for next weekend coming up that the fans can enjoy?
So as far as like panels go, I'm really excited about a lot of them. I have the Kessel Temple group coming up from Connecticut, and they do like a lightsaber battle demonstration, which is fun enough to watch. But then they're doing interactive like classes, like choreography classes. So they're doing one for adults in the morning where you go and you learn basic lightsaber choreography skills, and there's one for kids in the afternoon. I think that'll be a lot of fun just because sword fighting is a lot of fun, and who doesn't like Star Wars? Another one, this guy reached out to me named Joshua Nye. He builds these giant like robots in his garage in his backyard, and they're like giant fighting robots that he builds and designs, and he's going to bring those up and show those off in a panel. One of them's like he's 10 feet tall. It's huge.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's sweet. And his panel is going to be like, here's how I built them. They're relatively inexpensive to build. And as far as building giant robots goes, I'm sure they're on the anyway. But he's going to talk about that community because I'd never even heard of that community. I think that's really cool that there is a community of people who build giant fighting robots just in their garage. That's awesome.
That is pretty neat. I didn't know about that either. Like I think of fighting robots. I think of like the old
Real
TV
Steel.
show.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it was Real Steel. I think it was like Robot Wars or something like that, where they had the arena and the saw blades come out and stuff like that.
I was just watching that the other day. Another one that I just came up with last night with a friend of mine. It's something simple and fun, just like having a scavenger hunt for kids that are going through who may not be there all day for every single panel to see everything, and they may not like want to stop and look at every single vendor. So there will be, 12 to 15 little things for them to look out for or find, or little activities that they can do. And at the end of the day, they can win a little mask or some candy or something like that. I'm aiming to make it as family friendly as I can and, make it fun, not just in that there's panels and cosplay and stuff like that. Because for the kids that go in that don't do that sort of thing, they're just kind of meandering around looking at everything, which can be fun. But for me personally, it's more fun if you have something to do. If you're fidgety or doing something,
And having many years of experience of cons of multiple sizes and multiple genres, I know one year Bakuretsu Con in Colchester, Vermont, had put on kind of a little game thing where you had to go to one room and fill and get a piece of paper, and on the paper was a riddle or a game or something that you had to figure out to find out where the next clue was
Yep.
to eventually get your prize. So
Mm.
it was really fun, creative, and the way they did it was very thought provoking because one of the things they gave you was a paper and it just had numbers on it. And then I realized that the numbers on there corresponded, like everybody nowadays has cell phones. But think back to the old days of phones where a number, like number 2, had the letters ABC.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So you had to figure out what the code was or what the words were based off those numbers, based off of the older phones, which you
That's
don't
neat.
get with this. So I loved that idea because it made me think. It made it interactive. And really, I sat there and had to figure out what it was. It wasn't like a 5-minute thing. It took quite a while, but I love like puzzles and games like that. And
That's
I
really
think
cool.
that
That's
would,
a fun idea.
so just something to throw out there that I've experienced that might be fun. One thing that Anime-Zing Radio is proud to donate to Rail City this year, as we have for all the events that we sponsored. The grand prize winner of the Adult Masquerade will be a featured guest on Anime-Zing Radio for a future episode.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. That's such a great thing to throw in.
And as an added bonus, we are also going to give one lucky attendee that is over 18 who, if they come up to our table, subscribe to the channel. We already have a voice actor booked for July 31st. And I know the game is huge right now. I see a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people play it. Genshin Impact.
Yep.
We have Genshin Impact voice actor Josie McCoy is going to be joining us. So we're going to have one lucky fan join us as a special guest co-host for that show.
That's really exciting. That's going to be really cool.
What do you think of that, Darren?
So I get another replacement?
I'm sure you'll fall asleep like you normally do. That's kind of the running gag. That's why it's Darren is dead.
Gotcha.
Where Darren works at 2 jobs, his day usually starts at like 4:00 in the morning, and there's times on our normal Sunday shows where he's just exhausted and doesn't make it much past 8:30.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
We are also excited for everybody who's tuning in. This week, Sunday night, we have Funimation voice actress Christy Rothrock is going to be joining us, and the winner from PucciCon's giveaway, Tanya Firestein, is going to be joining us for that show. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So you definitely want to tune in for that. I love connecting fans with voice actors, especially where a lot of times they don't get to see these people in person. Voice actors are limited to time as to what cons they can do, who wants them, and so on and so forth. Is that something that you want to do with Rail City in the future, is bring in some bigger guests slowly but surely?
Oh, absolutely. I think, that was one of the first things that I thought of when I started planning this. Like, okay, how do I even begin to bring in larger guests in any way? And so I just started calling talent agencies. I'd like look up somebody that I know or somebody that I like that I think could be within our grasp and just call their talent agency and talk to them. And it was really surprising how much it just really just comes down to money. Like, do you have the money to afford bringing this person there? Because if so, great, they're in. Like, as long as their schedule accounts for it, like if you have the money, you can make it happen. So, I spoke very briefly with Brian O'Halloran from Clerks on Instagram. And I just said like, hey, he followed us. And I said, hey, that's awesome. Thanks for the follow. We'd love to have you at a future show. And he said, yeah, I'd love to be there next year. This year is a little crazy, but yeah, next year for sure. And I was like, that's really exciting.
I have a friend who I think would be a good addition to a convention. She hasn't. I don't think she's done any conventions as guests. She's new to the voice acting world, but she's also a Hollywood actress.
Oh,
her name is Giovanni Cruz.
Mm-hmm. Well, what has she done?
Suicide Squad.
Oh, nice. All right, that's great.
I know her from the anime world of Show by Rock Mashumai Resh, where she is one of the main characters and even sings in it. She's done a lot of theater work, and she's got more stuff that she's working on. We're actually in talks with her about doing something special coming up in December. So
Nice.
she's been a guest on the show quite a few times. I can send you information through email later on, and somebody can look up it.
Yeah.
Something to think about for future events, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you need any help with anime voice actors or things like that, I can do my best to help with the connections I have.
Great. I love to hear that. I think it's so interesting how there's this balance of like, do you want to have a ton of people or do you want to just have like one or two like huge names? And it's so hard to find like, okay, what's going to be a big draw? You know what I mean? Is it I don't know. It's an interesting thing that I'd never had to consider before.
And one thing I can say, having doing the radio show for 8 years, I've attended many cons pre-pandemic, and before I moved to northern New York, I was averaging 10 to 15 cons a year,
Yep.
various sizes. And we see a lot of first-year cons come. They have some success, do a little bit better, and then they try to go huge for a year or two and end up, going under because they went over budget. And I'm sure you've seen that many a times as well.
Yeah.
For fans out there who don't fully understand, all the workings behind running an event like this, what's some of the logistics and things that you have to think of, not just for this year, but looking ahead, so to make sure that you don't fall into the trope of, we had a great first year, let's get bigger and better for year two, and then, oh no, we overextended ourselves.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is staying as organized as humanly possible. This project has been the most organizing that I have ever done for anything. It's, keeping 7 or 8 different Excel spreadsheets for different aspects of the show, whether it's just vendor names or who signed on or what we've spent already. And I think one big thing for me that I need to focus on is keeping the money tight and keeping it right in perspective, because I don't want to go way too big and then just crash and burn. That's obvious. That's nobody's goal. And so being able to keep a steady incline over the next couple of years is a big thing that I'm trying to do.
And I'm sure that's something that, the fans in Vermont, because I know there's still a lot of questions about, is Bakuretsu going to happen this year, because nobody's heard anything from that convention.
Yeah.
I know Vermont Gatherings hosts a lot of events in Vermont. Not so much in the closest to the Comic-Con, Anime Con is their Sci-Fi and Fantasy Expo that we were a part of earlier this year. And, have you talked with them about working with them and advice and things of that nature on trying to continue to have good clientele and some sort of direction, because obviously learning from people who have done it longer is going to help you immensely in your growth of doing the convention?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when I started working on this, I did talk to them a little bit, and just got advice on the stuff that I need to know in the beginning, which is the big things, whether it's insurance or the legal stuff they need to take care of, or just making connections. For me, I get kind of control freaky about certain things, and it's funny. I compare FanFest to a very specific cheeseburger that I make for my friends every summer. I know exactly how I want to do it, and I don't take outside advice very well with it. I'm like, I know how I'm doing this cheeseburger. You guys don't know how to do it, so I'm going to do it. And with this sort of thing, I want to be able to say that like I did as much of it as I can. So although the help is great, and I do appreciate reaching out and having outside advice, I try to do as much of it my way as I can, which that may not be great for everybody, but that's just kind of how I'm doing it. I'm trying to do my own thing, and not
You're creating your own stamp on the world and not basically a carbon copy.
Right, exactly. And these shows are all pretty similar in that it's vendors, it's cosplay, it's panels, it's everything. But I want to try to get out of it a little bit and try to change it over the next few years.
Which I think it's a good goal to have, is to want to continue to grow it. And you want to give, like you said, you want to make sure that everybody has a good interactive experience, things of that nature. And you're not the only person I know who has had conventions that I'm doing it my way and going to stand by it. And some of them have been very successful. So, I was intrigued, by the fact that you're only about an hour away from me, because I live in Plattsburgh.
Yep.
So only about an hour away. So we were excited about the fact that you were close. It's a new con. And, I'm looking forward to, granted, I've been running myself ragged this year, especially these last couple of months. This is con number 4 in 7 weeks.
Wow. That's a busy 7 weeks.
And that includes Anime Boston. That includes 2 weeks before that, a trip to Pennsylvania. Last weekend, we were in Watertown for NocoCon.
Yep.
Which I had just heard about the weekend before. And, of course, next weekend we'll be coming out and hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think St. Albans is a good spot to host something new like this. It's a great area that has a lot to offer. Just coming to visit, for vendors that are coming from out of town, I think it's a really nice spot with a ton of great food and beer and just stuff to do. Burlington is a lot of fun, but it can be overwhelming. And I think St. Albans is a great alternative to this sort of thing. So I'm really excited to have people come in.
And I think with St. Albans, when people think of Vermont, they don't really think of St. Albans. They don't think northern Vermont. Burlington, some of the more southern parts of Vermont gets more attention than North Country, which I think it's really cool that you're trying to bring in more fans, more business, and it doesn't just help Rail City, it helps the community.
Exactly. And, I think St. Albans is just close enough to a bunch of different spots where more people are likely to come. I have people coming from Montreal, I have people coming from New Hampshire, Maine, New York, Massachusetts, all that. It's right in the middle of everything, kind of, and I'm excited to kind of connect those areas.
And I do thank you for bringing in some friends of ours that we haven't seen in years.
Yeah, that's a really exciting thing.
And that includes the Montreal X-Men, which I haven't seen. I think the last time I saw them was Plattsburgh Comic-Con 2019.
Yep, that was the last time I saw them too.
So it'll be great to reconnect with them. Delicious Chocolates. Vicky Camp is a good friend of ours. Excited that you have her going there. And Space Cow Illustrations. We met them first time was Plattsburgh Comic-Con, and then last weekend we saw them at NocoCon.
Oh, no way.
So it's going to be fun to see them again and be able to chat with them more at Rail City.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And I'm curious, how did you come up with the name Rail City?
Everything around here is Rail City. The Rail City market. So St. Albans was a big railroad town, and to some extent it still is. There's a lot of importing and exporting coming through St. Albans. The railroad was a big deal for a long time, way back. And so Rail City is just kind of a name that's thrown around town. And for about 4 or 5 years, I did birthday parties and events as Rail City Spidey. And so, I mean, the name's already there. I'm just like, all right, I'll just stick with that theme and throw it on this.
That is cool, and I didn't know to the extent of how much railroad played a part of St. Albans, but I am a railroad fanatic myself, so.
Oh, really?
I'm curious to get out there and see some of the railroad history and stuff that's in town if I have the time.
Yeah.
I might have to be another trip up there at some point.
Yeah. Check out the museum with all the scary wax figures.
Oh no, thank you.
They have one wax figure. They take us there on like field trips when you're a kid. So you're in like 2nd or 3rd grade going to the St. Albans Museum. And did you ever hear the story about Phineas Gage?
I have heard the story somewhat. I don't
Yeah, so
remember it because it's been forever, but I have heard the name.
So he's a guy that was working on the railroad and something went wrong and he got a railroad spike right up through his head, like right here. And it was this big psychological thing because he survived, but it changed his personality. Anyways, the St. Albans Museum, imagine you're a second or third grader going on a field trip and suddenly you see this life-size wax figure of a man with a spike through his head. It is horrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Oh my gosh. What's your thought, Darren?
Darren's dead.
Yep. Sounds like, I think we already lost him. As the meme continues, Darren is dead. That's why he doesn't camera. That way you don't see him.
Yeah.
Although he does it wrong because he's usually surrounded by his Dakimakura waifus. So.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
So he's surrounded by a ton of anime pillows and.
There it is.
Right on cue. Right on cue.
Let me just move the ladies.
He's showing what he can.
Yeah. All right, good night, Darren.
I was actually out of the room whenever y'all were talking about me, so.
Luke was telling us about that they have a wax museum there, and one of the people in the wax museum has a spike going through their head. And I was like, so what do you think of that, Darren? And we heard nothing. It's like, oh, Darren is dead. Figured you fell asleep surrounded by your Dakimakuras. And as soon as I said that, you must have come back in, and there they were.
Yeah. And the thing about the museum, it's not even a wax museum. It's just a regular museum that just happens to have terrifying wax figures.
I did wax museum. I think we did a wax museum in school for one time. That was one of the hardest things I ever did while people actually came around and looked at us.
That's so scary.
I'm not even going to lie. That was rough.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do it, in all honesty, because I'm a paranormal investigator as well. And my longevity of paranormal investigations, I have seen and experienced way too much stuff that I would be standing there going, did you just move?
I went on a field trip in college to there was this company in Vermont called the Bread and Puppet Show, which is it's got a long history of theater and puppetry and all kinds of stuff. It was big in the 60s. But they have a museum up in the woods here somewhere. It's this big old barn that is lined top to bottom, every wall, all the ceiling with these puppets and dolls. They range from 3 inches to like 8 feet tall. They're terrifying.
No.
Me being scared of dolls, it was the worst. I went up like a flight of stairs into the attic of the barn, and there's all these dolls hanging from the ceiling. I was like, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm all set with that. No dolls for me. I'll stick with my anime figures.
Yep. That's all I need. All I need is these little statues over here, and I'm happy.
But yet you watched All the Dress Up Darling and didn't have anything to say about his dolls.
I tried to ignore the Hina dolls, especially where most of the time it was just one that wasn't even complete. Besides, who's looking at the dolls when Marin is on screen?
That's a good point.
Valid point.
I mean, come on, best girl of 2022, and she has replaced Mizure as my number one waifu, so. It took a long time for somebody to replace Mizure from Rosario Vampire in that number one spot. Now, here we're getting all nerd on you, Luke, but this is your community. This is what we do here.
It. Yeah.
We just don't have Angela here to like shake her head at us and
don't have her here to basically let us have it for getting off topic on stuff, especially on shows she's not particularly fond of.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure she's shaking her head in spirit.
I'm sure. If she's
Yeah.
tuning in, I'll get messages, I'm sure. But Angela will be joining us Sunday night, so everybody can let her know that we were talking good about her. And we do have a lot of fun here on the show. And like I said, we keep it laid back. Just whatever comes to mind is usually what we talk about.
Yeah.
And now with Rail City, you've been putting a lot of time. Like you said, you started it back in April of last year. And when you decided to start this, did you have any idea how much work was going to go into it? Has it been more work than you expected, or about the same? Or
I had no idea what I was getting into in any way, shape, or form. So when I first started putting it together, I had a name, I had a date, I had a venue. That was it. And I was like, okay, great. Everything should kind of fall into place. And so I started going around to different conventions and talking to vendors. So I remember I was at like Granite State Con. I talked to a ton of people there, and I got great reception from everybody. I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Can I get a card or something? And is that anything you'd be interested in being a part of? And they'd all say, yeah, that sounds great. Shoot me an email. I'd be like, great, awesome. And I'd shoot an email and I'd send out like 100 emails and sit back and be like, all right, let them roll in. Not rolling in yet. Where is everyone? And I'll be like, wait a minute, I sent out emails. Where is everybody? What's going on? How come no one's throwing themselves at me to pay me to come to my hometown to the thing that I'm doing? And so learning that, like, it's not just as simple as saying, hey, I'm doing this, come on over. It's not the same as inviting your friends over for a cookout. There's way more to it than that. Which sounds silly now because, like, obviously it's way bigger than that. I think that has probably been the toughest thing about doing this is reaching out to people and keeping an open communication.
Oh, definitely. And I think I thank you for sharing that experience, because I think a lot of fans out there and a lot of people who have thought about creating their own events don't understand exactly how much work goes into putting on a show like this. And I have many friends through the years of going to conventions and doing the show, because we've worked with many cons throughout the country, even conventions we've never went to. We've promoted, and getting to find out about some of the behind the scenes and a better understanding of what goes on. I think a lot of the general public who attends conventions never understands how much work is actually going on behind the scenes, or they just don't focus on that because they just want to go have a good time. And I want to see cosplay, I want to buy some art or some cool merchandise, maybe get an autograph, and have a good time, and don't think about how much work you as the show creator is putting on the staff, the volunteers, the artists, the vendors, and everybody. And it's one thing that I enjoy doing this show is being able to get the information out there so people can get a better understanding and a better appreciation of what you do as the owner and promoter of Rail City.
Yeah, it's crazy thinking about, like, I've done so much work over the last year. It has taken up 100% of my brain space, and it's a week away. It's 8 days from now, and I still have a list of things that I need to get done. That I feel like up until 10 o'clock when the doors open, I'm still going to be like, okay, I still have to do this and this and this and this and this. And, like, I have all the big stuff done. It's just filling in all the little things, I moved all the big rocks. I just got to fill the sand in the middle.
Oh, yeah. And we are still interested. I don't remember if we had a panel spot, but we did offer up doing a podcasting panel as well for Rail City. So if you still had an open spot, we'd love to do a panel about podcasting, how to get started, and things of that nature.
Okay, I think that would have to be something for next year, only because right now we have very limited space to do it.
Yep.
And our panels are full top to bottom.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, and so that's the thing about our venue is that it's big enough to expand within the same venue and have multiple things going on. And that's really what my biggest goal is right now, is being able to make the show big enough where I can fill up the whole venue instead of just using one section of it. So I can only have, one thing going on over here and have to fill in a ton of things in one space. I'd love to be able to spread out and have room to have a couple different things going on.
Awesome. And I can totally understand that. And like I said, I want to continue. Hopefully, the partnership between AZR and Rail City can continue for years to come because I've really enjoyed reaching out to different conventions, especially shows that I've never heard of. And it's fun to promote new cons. I love going to conventions. I think all of us in the community didn't realize how much we miss conventions until the pandemic hit, and then we really missed them. And now that things are kind of getting back to quote unquote normal, it's like Rail City is going to be my 6th event of the year, and we're only nearing the end of June.
Yeah.
And July I have one, August I have one, the potential of being a guest at Anime-Zing in November. I think we have one in September and October as well. So
that's huge.
At least
That's
one.
awesome. It's so cool being able to reconnect with those groups. Like not the weekend after FanFest, but the weekend after FanFest, I'll be going up to Montreal Comic-Con. And I am so excited to do that. I was invited by a group of cosplayers to join in on them and do a big group photo shoot. And just being able to like see all my friends again that I haven't been able to see, see all my Canadian friends that I haven't been able to see for years, or anybody from anywhere. It's so exciting. And being able to be back in that environment is huge.
Now, Darren, hearing us talk a lot about this upcoming convention, a first-year con, I know you have a lot of experience of cons in North Carolina area. Is there any experiences or things that you've seen at those cons that you'd like to talk with Luke about, or have any questions for Luke?
Not off the top of my head, y'all. Pretty much. Sorry, y'all pretty much covered everything that I have in my mind. I'm trying to think if there's anything specific to our conventions. I think the one thing at a convention that has a lot of cosplays, I think I said something a couple years ago how we generally have a couple of cosplay medics running around. And I think some of y'all said that wasn't very common at some of the conventions y'all have attended. Aside from that, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
I think that's a great idea. I might even incorporate that this year. I think that's because I've had things break at conventions before. I wore my bat suit to Fan Expo Boston. I was competing with it in their cosplay contest. In the morning of the show, I found a piece had snapped off. And I was like, oh, no. So I had to scramble for everything. I think having a little repair shop is huge.
And I think that's something that easily gets overlooked, especially when you're putting on an event, because you're thinking about the vendors, the fans going to have fun, or you have so much going on in your head that, like you said, you're trying to fill in the quicksand and the small details and everything. And that's a great point, Darren, of having a repair station or something of the like. And I know it's tough to like get sewing machines and stuff like that, but Anime Boston, I know, had a couple people who were, cosplay medics I saw this year, where they had a bunch of thread, they had like a pocket sewing machine, they had scissors, needles, hot glue guns that were battery operated, which I didn't know existed.
Me neither.
So that if somebody needed a quick fix or something, they were there to help out. So
that's awesome.
Definitely,
that's a really cool idea.
Definitely something to think about. And I know you said you're going to see about possibly incorporating it this year, and definitely next year as you continue to grow Rail City, have a designated room or area for cosplay repair. And
yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, like, as someone who has gone to all of these different shows and you like jumping right back into it, what is one thing that stands out to you as a vendor or as a guest or anything like that is beneficial to you, or what have promoters done for you that has made you feel more or less welcome at a show?
This is the first, like, I've been press at many shows for years, which is a cool thing, because being able to have the potential of having sit down interviews with the voice actors or the guests of the convention, being able to talk to and promote different vendors, different artists, things of that nature is fun, being able to interview, like I love interviewing the cosplayers and stuff, because I'm a firm believer that the cosplayers deserve just as much attention as the voice actors do.
Yeah.
Because they work just as hard on their craft as the voice actors do, but the voice actors get more recognition because they're out there based on the shows that we love, whether it be a cartoon, an anime, a video game, whatever the case may be. PucciCon, when we were sponsors, really, really impressed me. We started something after PucciCon about a rating scale, 1 to 10. PucciCon rated higher on that scale than Anime Boston did.
Wow.
For the number one reason of the staff was amazing. And when vendors I don't know come up to me and start talking about, I can't believe how great the staff is here. They checked up on us like multiple times throughout the day. And I don't know if you've vended cons in the past, Luke, or not, but we've attended conventions, my wife being an artist. So an artist alley table, they tell us where your table is, and you might see somebody once throughout the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
And you feel like, okay, well, you feel left out. Katsucon was great because they came around multiple times, and they even gave people water, because a lot of, if you're a solo artist, you're stuck at that table from open to close without help. You have to rely on either a volunteer to watch your table who can't legally sell anything or do anything until you get back. Just basically an eye to make sure nothing happens, or count on vendors around you to keep an eye on your table. And the fact that they knew that, and they would come by and be like, do you need here's some water for you, complimentary stuff, which goes a long way, especially at convention like Anime Boston's Artist Alley. We vended there 2 years in a row, and that's 30 hours in 3 days, 12-hour days on Friday and Saturday. And there were artists who had to sit at that table. We sat, my wife and I sat at that table 12 hours Friday, 12 hours Saturday, 8 hours or 6 hours Sunday. So it's 30 hours in 3 days, and that's a lot of the con that you're just sitting there. And
that's rough.
So what impresses me the most about conventions is when not just the owners, but the staff genuinely cares about everybody at the convention.
Yeah.
Obviously, guests are a big draw, and you want the guests to have, the most, you want to make sure the guests have a great time. So, of course, they're going to get a lot of attention from volunteers and staff and things of that nature. But I think the artists and the vendors need to have the same treatment. Granted, they may not get the same perks, but they should be, check in. Like PucciCon, and I've talked about it when we did our review, probably 6 to 8 times a day, at least, we would have people come by checking up on us. And it wasn't just one person. It was probably 5 or 6 different people who would constantly come by and, you guys good? And it wasn't just us because we're sponsors. There was a table beside us. I watched them go to every person in that room because I could see the entire artist alley and guests area. And I watched them just go from place to place to place and just check on people. And
that's huge. That's one thing I'm trying to incorporate as much as I can. The team that I have so far helping out and volunteering is awesome. And I'm really happy to have them all on board because they are all genuine people who care. And, when I first started doing this and going around to conventions, I was talking to vendors and asking them essentially the same thing I asked you. Like, what do you look for in a show that makes you want to come back? And just having a team that is good to the vendors is something that I'm really excited about. And little spoilers for you for when you arrive. We put together we thought, okay, vendors, when they come in, they need a little packet with their badge and everything and just whatever information they need. But we're doing little gift baggies with stickers, buttons, their badge, Wi-Fi stuff, little thing of maple syrup, and a handwritten note from me just being like, hey, I really appreciate you being here. And I went through all of my vendors so far and wrote an individualized note for everybody, letting them know how much I appreciate them being there. And even after show hours on Saturday night, after the show closes, it closes at 5. So from 5:30 to 6:30 or whatever, there's going to be pizza and drinks and salads available for anybody who wants to stay after and get some free food, which is huge. And it's being provided by a local pizza place. So I'm just really trying to do as much as I can to let the vendors and guests know how much I appreciate them showing up.
And I think that's a huge thing because before pandemic, Darren, you and I had many conversations about our conventions getting oversaturated. There were so many new cons popping up. Almost weekly, you could go to a convention somewhere within a 4 or 5 hour drive of your location, especially up here in the Northeast. There's a ton of conventions and new ones are still popping up. And it's not a bad thing that there are so many events, but like you said, you want to do things your way, and trying to find out what people want. You're the first convention promoter to ask me that question. And as an attendee of cons for years, it was kind of like, it took me back a second to be like, wait, why do I go back to cons? Is it convenience? Is it, as vendors, obviously you want to make money. When we would go for my wife's artwork, obviously our goal was to make a profit, or at least make table money back, make the trip worth it. And of course we have conventions where we have special connections. Bakuretsu Con, I met my wife at. Northeast Comic-Con in Boxborough, Mass. When it was in Wilmington, we got married at that event.
Oh, wow.
In fact, up until the time that we moved in 2019, so up until August of 2019, I had only missed one of Gary's shows in Massachusetts for Northeast Comic-Con, and we were actually on the way there and the car caught fire.
Oh, so that's a pretty good way to get out.
So that was the only one we missed before we moved. And even this year I went back. I took a weekend, and co-host Angela and I went and covered NECC as press, and it was great to get back and see friends and stuff of that nature. Like you said, the pandemic put the world on hold for a year and a half, and now we're finally getting able to see people that we haven't seen in forever. And I know from my perspective, it's like, I'm getting to see the Montreal X-Men for the first time since Plattsburgh Comic-Con, and that's an amazing thing. We chat with them on Facebook from time to time, Ross and Pierre, wonderful people, and I'm so excited to be able to get a chance to see them. And they haven't seen my daughter since she was like 1, so they're going to be surprised at how big she's gotten, because my wife and daughter are going to be there with me as well. So
that's really cool. That's really exciting.
Now, you said you were also a cosplayer. What got you interested in cosplaying when you first started out?
Well, as any little kid, I was obsessed with superheroes, and I loved getting superhero costumes. And so, as a kid, I was like, these are fun, but what if I had one that looked real? And I remember probably being in like 4th grade and finding some company that made like screen accurate Spider-Man suits, or to me they were screen accurate. And I remember as like a 4th grader writing them an email being like, hi, can I have one? And they responded obviously being like, no, these are not toys, like these are for whatever. So for years I just always wanted really nice costumes, and I would hyperfixate on those like the bonus features on DVDs for like Daredevil and Spider-Man and all those superhero movies, and seeing how they made the costumes and all the cool stuff. And I just always loved that. So there was one year where I said, I'm going to get myself a nice costume for my birthday. So I bought a Spider-Man suit from the RPC studio. It was a lot of money. And I was like, that was a lot. How can I kind of make this? How can I justify spending, that much on a costume? So I started doing birthday parties, and that was a blast. I have a background in gymnastics, so I was able to like do flips and all kinds of stuff for the kids and do games. So it would kind of sell the bit a little bit more. And I kind of figured the money that I make with my costumes, I can put back into my costumes. So it just became this kind of self-sustaining little hobby where I would do a couple birthday parties, buy a costume, do a couple birthday parties, make a new prop or something like that. And it just kind of grew from there. And now I have 2 Captain America suits, but I modified one of them for FanFest for like a commercial that I shot the other day. So I have 2 Cap suits, one Poe Dameron X-Wing flight jacket. I have 3 Spider-Man suits, my bat suit. I made a Wolverine costume for a friend of mine for Halloween. It's just an obsession at this point. It's an obsession, and it drains my money.
I can understand that. Being a cosplayer myself, actually, at NokoCon, I went there dressed as Miss Kobayashi from Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and got to have a nice conversation with the voice actress Leah Clark of Kobayashi.
That's cool.
And got her autograph on a couple of different things. It's fun being a collector of things nerd. One of our sponsors, Home Circle Media, I bought some officially licensed art books from Japan.
That's cool.
So this is an anime called Show by Rock that I'm obsessed with. And one of the... If I can find the page. Of course, I'm not going to find the page. Or am I? Did I still have it marked? I still have it marked. So one of the bands in there, Leah Clark voiced. And actually, in the English dub anime, she actually sings.
Neat.
So being able to get an autograph on there, and kind of my wife and I have decided that we're going to try to get as many Show by Rock autographs as we possibly can, whether it be in the book or on artwork that she's done. Kineticon last year, got to meet Caitlin Glass.
That's cool.
A friend of mine got me Emmy Lowe's autograph, who is Delmine. And my wife did a art piece for Anime Boston. We got Stephanie Young's autograph on that from Raging Signal.
That's cool. My only autograph that I have. So again, the first year that I did Spider-Man, I made enough to go to Fan Expo Boston and kind of ball out as much as I wanted to, which was a ton of fun. But I got to meet Stan Lee and get his autograph on my Secret Wars 8, which I was super excited about. That's my one the one autograph that I've peaked with autographs. I'm like, I don't need any more. This is great. A lot of fun. But I'll also show you. So, like I said, I used a Captain America suit for FanFest because the theme is blue and gold, and those are the colors. And I never wore my stealth suit, so I painted the stripes gold and 3D printed a little logo for the middle and logos for the shoulders and all that.
Oh, that's cool.
So I used that for a little commercial that I shot the other day, which was a lot of
And
fun.
this was the art piece that my wife had done that Susie had signed of Yui Yui.
That's neat. That's really cool. Get your own stuff signed. I like that.
And then we were lucky enough to reconnect with a young woman that we've known for 6 years. We first met her before she became a voice actor at Northeast Comic-Con. Got to know her through her music on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of Kaylee Mills or not.
Nope.
But do you know the anime ReZero?
I don't. To be completely transparent with you, I'm not an anime guy. So a lot of the references you guys have made, I've just been like, haha, yeah, for sure, guys.
This was her character, Amelia, who is she's the main female character of ReZero, but she gets no love. It goes to the blue-haired maid, which I'm sure you've seen figures of everywhere because there's
Probably.
a billion of them.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
About the same. Well, there's a couple out there we can throw you that'll convert you. Just give us enough time, or just hang around us long enough.
Great.
And being a cosplay fan, watch My Dress Up Darling.
Alrighty. I feel the only adjacent stuff is Studio Ghibli movies. I hardly consider that, only because I feel like it's its own thing entirely. That and I loved watching Pokemon. I still love watching Pokemon.
I gave up around Sun and Moon, just because the art style even though the animation was lit, the art style was just no.
Yeah,
they had a great thing going with X and Y, and then they just ruined it.
X and Y, the games, I absolutely loved it. I played X so much. It was absurd.
Honestly, the best game that they did for that one, ironically for me, both of them were in the Hoenn region. Emerald was the best game, period, in the story, followed by Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire.
Yeah, Omega Ruby was fun. Emerald was one of the first games that I played that I like. It was like Leaf Green, I obsessed over, and then Emerald afterwards. I got real into those.
Yeah, I never got the gold symbols on any of the Battle Frontier. That's still the hardest. Honestly, Emerald is the hardest game to fully complete in the Pokemon franchise simply because of the Battle Frontier.
Yeah, I ended up losing my copy of Emerald, which sucked because I couldn't play it anymore. But then it also sucked because it wasn't my copy of Emerald. I borrowed it from a friend because he had already beaten it, and he's like, "Here, you can play it now." And then I lost it. I felt terrible. This was in like sixth grade too, and I still think like, where is that damn thing?
Quick question: how young are you?
I'm 26.
Wait, when's your birthday?
August 20th, 95.
You got me beat by almost exactly 6 months. February
Let's go.
24th, 96.
Gotcha.
See,
Again, I'm the old
I'm
man.
still the child, but not nowhere near to the level I normally am.
Kids.
You're a puppy to me, so I was born in '78. That's all I'll say. And but it's kind of fun being the old otaku fan, the old anime fan.
Yeah, like
I'm not even the oldest one, so I don't feel bad.
You're like the wise grizzled old man
who. About to say, probably one of the things that still gets me is when older attendees are cosplaying some of our favorite elders from various anime. It always gives me a kick when I see an older gentleman cosplaying Master Roshi or something.
That's funny. I remember I was working beer delivery a couple years ago when I was in college, and I was doing a route with my boss, and I was really intimidated because he was maybe mid 50s, and he just seemed kind of gruff. He chain smoked, and I was a little nervous working with my boss. And I remember I asked some question in the morning that just made me look like a doof, and I was like, "Shit, I blew it with this guy on. No, this isn't going to be very good." And like a text went off on my phone, and so he saw my background, and he was like, "Oh, Totoro," and I was like, yeah, it's Totoro. You like Totoro?" He's like, "Oh, I love all those movies." Turned out we had everything in common. He was a huge comic book fan, loved Ghibli movies. He was like, "Yeah, one of my favorite like musical artists is like, I really like Katy Perry." I was like, "What? Like, what's going on?" That stuff is really funny.
It's amazing what people, the appearance they give off or the vibe they give off, and then they see one thing, and then it's like a whole nother door opens up about them that you never knew existed.
Oh yeah, it was very funny, and it made it way more enjoyable working with him because I wasn't terrified the whole time.
Yeah,
it is. It's definitely interesting to find out who is into the anime, the comics, the costuming, the conventions, because you'd be amazed at the backgrounds of some of these cosplayers. Like we have good friends of ours, Hitake and Sahara, who finished second place at Anime Boston in the Masters division.
Wow.
They're both like scientists, and one of them travels around the country fighting wildfires and stuff like that. Biologists and plant study. And like they are two of the nicest guys I've ever met. We've been friends with them for years, 6-7 years at least, maybe more.
Mm-hmm. That's really neat. One of my favorite examples of this so far has been, so when I was in middle school, I moved in 6th grade, but I had a teacher at my first school who was an art teacher, and he was super into comics and super into Star Wars, and like I did all of his after school programs. It was like puppet making and all this fun stuff. He was just a blast to have around. So moved to a different school, whatever, finished up middle school, went to high school, went to college, completely forgot about everything, completely forgot about him. Well, not completely, but anyway, so I started working at this new school in November, and I was in, unbeknownst to me, his class. I leaned over and I was like, "Hey, what's this teacher's name?" Because he drew those Simpsons characters, and I had a teacher that taught me to draw Simpsons characters. And they're like, "Oh, that's Mr. Galley." And I was like, "No way." And so I went up and I like reintroduced myself. And since then we've become like really good buddies. And like he's just this older guy, and all we do is talk about Star Wars and superheroes and nerdy stuff. And it's really fun to, even though there's such an age difference, we still all like the same stuff. So we can have those conversations that I would have with my buddies that are my age. It's just really cool.
It's definitely something that transcends time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a select group of people that I can have a drawn out conversation with about Cad Bane and other bounty hunters in Star Wars. And if I can have those conversations, I'm going to have those conversations with anybody.
And we are just about out of time. I know we said we're going to go for about an hour tonight for this special, but I want to thank you, Luke, for coming on. And for all of our viewers out there, we want to give you a chance to promote yourself, promote the con, everywhere people can find out information for Rail City. We call this our shameless plugging section, and the floor is yours.
Shameless plugging session. It's Rail City Fan Fest across the board. It is Facebook, Rail City Fan Fest. Instagram, Rail City Fan Fest. Website, railcityfanfest.com. It's pretty easy to find. It's just over a week away, and I'm hoping to see as many people there as possible.
And we are really excited to be able to partner with you and be a sponsor of Rail City Fan Fest this year. Looking forward to seeing what Rail City has to offer. I'm excited that I'm excited cons are back. I'm excited that we decided to take AZR into a new direction of working with conventions, not just press to cover, but actually being able to donate prizes to conventions and stuff like that. And I thank you for all the hard work you've put in over the last year and a half to bring this to fruition. I know it hasn't been an easy journey for you, just based off of the conversations I've had with other convention owners and promoters. And really, hats off to you to not just be given the idea, but actually see it through.
Hey, I appreciate you saying that, man. And thank you for having me on the show. This has been really cool.
Until Sunday night, in 2 days, we're going to be welcoming Christy Rothrock to the show with special guest co-host, winner from our PoochieCon giveaway, Tanya Firestein is going to be joining us as well to have a fun 2-hour conversation with Christy. I hope everybody out there has a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I know that's this Sunday coming up. Definitely thank you, Luke, for joining us. Big thank you to our sponsors, Home Circle Media and Casey Fox, for supporting AZR since we started way back 8 years ago. And, if you're in the New England area, especially northern New England area, come on out to Rail City Fan Fest. It's going to be a great time. From everything we've learned from Luke tonight, that it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about being able to be a part of this and be able to document it. I know we are planning on trying, you said there was going to be internet access, so we are going to be looking at live streaming from our table, like we have at the past few cons as well, so people can get an idea of the venue, what's going on. I don't think we're going to do a 6-hour stream like we did for Vermont Sci-Fi. I learned that was a little too much.
Seems exhausting.
12 hours in 2 days of trying to keep up with content, and try to keep it, somewhat PC.
Yeah.
PoochieCon, we went to a 3-hour time slot, so we'll probably do a couple of 3-hour live streams from Rail City so everybody can tune in, get an idea of what's going on. But once again, thank you so much, Luke, for especially last minute coming on, hanging out with us tonight. It's been a pleasure to get to meet you and chat with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Until Sunday night when we welcome Christy Rothrock to the show, this has been Anime-Zing Radio right here on Facebook.